Hi, I think we're live in a couple places. Give me 2 seconds to get us live onto Instagram. This is a two-step process. Okay, I think we are almost there. All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. My name is Diane Rose Solomon. I'm with What's Plant-Based Cooking Good Looking. And I'm delighted because I have the wonderful Dr. Melanie Joy here as my guest. So hello, Dr. Melanie Joy. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's really my pleasure and my honor, and I'm thrilled and delighted that we're able to have this conversation right now. So let me introduce so many people that will be watching this know who you are, but not everybody does. So let me introduce you formally, and then I have a bunch of questions for you. So Dr. Melanie Joy is an award-winning psychologist and educator, and she's the author of 7 books, including the best-selling Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs and Wear Cows, Beyond Beliefs, which I'm reading right now, The Vegan Matrix, and How to End Injustice Everywhere. Her work has been featured in major media outlets around the world, and she has received a number of awards, including the Ahimsa Award, previously given to the Dalai Lama and Nelson Mandela, for her work on global nonviolence. Melanie has given talks and trainings in over 50 countries, and she's also the founding president of the international NGO Beyond Carnism. You can learn more about her work at carnism.org. So thank you again for being here, Dr. Melanie Joy. And we will get into our questions in a minute because I have a lot to ask you. But I just want to share with everybody why we're even on this platform together today. Because we're both sharing the Vegan Health Bundle. And what the Vegan Health Bundle is there are 150 contributors. Dr. Joy contributed an amazing course. I contributed some cooking classes. And there's at least another 150 other contributors, ebooks, courses, recipes, cooking classes, you name it, to help promote veganism and making it easier for people to be vegan. And the bundle is only another week for the bundle. Next Sunday at midnight, it's over. The value of the bundle is $8,000, and they're offering it for $49. So I will share a link where you can get that at the end. But just want to let you know why we're both here. We're both contributors, and Melanie Joy has agreed to speak with me, so I'm thrilled and delighted. So now on to you, because this is really the most fun and most important part. Let's start with how you found your way to veganism, because I don't know your story. I know your books. I've read Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs and Wear Cows, but I don't know your story. How did you even get started?
Yeah, thank you, first of all. Yeah, and thank you for that introduction as well. And I'm also really delighted to be here and very happy to be contributing to the bundle. It sounds fantastic and, great. It's great to be a part of it. So my story started in my childhood, actually, but I'll condense it. I grew up with a dog, like so many people who I loved like a family member. We adopted him when he was a puppy, my dog Fritz, and I was like 2 years old. So we really grew up together. And that was a very important bond in my life. And I also grew up eating meat, eggs, and dairy, like most people,
Yeah.
right? And just throughout my childhood, my adolescence, into my young adulthood, I just never thought about how strange it was that I could pet my dog with one hand, while I ate like a pork chop with the other, a pork chop that had once been an animal who was at least as intelligent and sentient as my dog. I never made the connection between the meat, or eggs or dairy on my plate and the living being it once was. And I also was a person who really, cared, like most people, cared about non-human animals and would never want to contribute to their suffering, especially when that suffering was so intensive and so completely unnecessary. And yet there I was eating animals, on a regular basis. But then in 1989, all of that changed. At that point, I was 23 years old. I ate a hamburger that turned out to have been contaminated with Campylobacter, and it's like the red meat version of salmonella. And I got really, really sick, and I wound up in the hospital on intravenous antibiotics. And after that experience, I never wanted to eat meat again. And it wasn't at least not on a conscious level, it wasn't like some ethical decision. It was just like, when you're really sick,
Hmm.
the last thing that you ate that you made you
You
sick,
never
you
want to eat
just get
again. Yeah.
like done,
Yes.
So I was done. So I like became a vegetarian by accident,
Hmm.
basically. And this was before the internet. So, I'm like, I had to learn about how to cook for myself and how to shop. And of course, in this learning, I stumbled upon information about animal agriculture, and what I learned just shocked and horrified me. I just could not believe the extent of the harm and the suffering of, non-human animals. I couldn't believe the damage to the environment, the damage to human health, my own body. Um, and I shortly after that, I met a vegan and became vegan. But what shocked me even more than this information was that nobody I talked to about what I was learning was willing to hear what I had to say. They would always say things like, "Don't tell me that, you'll ruin my meal," or they'd
Hmm.
call me a radical vegan hippie propagandist, right? So this was, so this was my journey to veganism, but my journey to why I'm here talking with you
Yeah.
today extends beyond that, because it was this experience that I had the minute I opened my mouth and I was talking to like people that I was close to. They were rational people like I was. They were compassionate people. They were people who cared about animals and cared about their impact on the planet and others. You know, the conversation would just shut down. It would be like,
Hmm.
don't tell me that you'll ruin my meal. And so this made me really curious as to how, you know, intelligent or rational, I should say, compassionate people could just stop thinking and
Hmm.
feeling when it came to this critical issue of eating animals. And that was what led me to do my research on the psychology of eating animals, and the work that I do today.
Amazing. And I have similar experiences all the time with family members that say, "I don't want to hear it. You're going to ruin it for me, and I know I'm not ready to do what you're doing." So I
Right.
can I can 100% relate. So your contribution to the Vegan Health Bundle is a course called Sustainable Vegan Advocacy. And I was delighted to find this gem along with all the other health courses and the exercise classes, which are important and they're amazing, and the recipes, and they're so helpful. But you shared this wonderful class, and I went through it, and it was really so well done, as is everything that you do. How why did you create the course? Who is it for? When I think about vegan advocacy, I think of people who are on the front lines, they're out there making noise, but most of us aren't doing that. We're just kind of minding our business as vegans. Can you tell me why you created the course and who it's for?
Yeah, sure. So the course is a part of our Center for Effective Vegan Advocacy. As you mentioned earlier, my organization is Beyond Carnism, and our mission is to expose and transform carnism, which is the invisible belief system that conditions people to eat certain
Yeah.
animals and that causes this defensive reaction in non-vegans every time the issue, or almost every time the issue of veganism comes up, right? So our goal is to expose and transform carnism globally. And one of the ways we do this, besides just raising awareness of this psychology that I
Mhm.
was talking about earlier of carnism, is to empower vegans, right? People who are working to communicate about the issue, raise awareness, and create the change. And when we talk about vegan advocacy, so our Center for Effective Vegan Advocacy is our primary
Mhm.
program to, getting the message out there through supporting vegans,
Mhm.
who are promoting this message. And when we talk about vegan advocacy, we're not talking just about people who are self-identified, quote unquote, advocates or activists. Advocacy is communicating about an issue in a way that you hope will open hearts and minds. And most vegans, even if they don't identify as advocates, when they talk to somebody in their family or when they're out with a group of people and the issue of veganism comes up, or eating animals, which it almost always does, because, people will say to you, "Oh, why aren't you eating the meat?" Or whatever, "Oh, are you vegan? Why are you vegan?" When you respond as a vegan, you're probably advocating in some way.
Right.
And we created this course, Sustainable Vegan Advocacy, because whether you are a self-identified advocate and you are out there, working for an organization or doing advocacy on your own, really trying to raise awareness, or you're a lifestyle vegan
Mhm.
who is in situations where you're forced to be an advocate, and you want to be an effective ambassador for the issue or for the cause. Either way, it is challenging at best to be a vegan and a vegan advocate in a world that is so deeply offensive to our, our values and so defensive against what we have to say. And it's so easy to burn out and get exhausted. Regardless as to why somebody became vegan, even people who don't eat animals and don't even call themselves vegan, they're plant-based,
Mhm.
will often say it's really challenging. It's exhausting. Like I'm hit by defenses. I'm like stereotyped. And you walk out the door as a vegan, and you see the world differently. We don't see different things. We see the same things differently. You see trucks of meat driving on the street. And those are trucks of body parts. Daily, your deepest sensibilities are offended, very often. So it's a challenge being vegan in a non-vegan world. And sustainable vegan advocacy means being able to practice your veganism, to be a vegan, and to communicate about veganism in a way that is sustainable, that doesn't exhaust you, that doesn't burn you out, that keeps you fulfilled and inspired.
That's very helpful. And the class itself, what's so wonderful about the class is it's not just you explaining what to do. There's a whole workbook that accompanies it. So it invites you to be thoughtful in your responses. And so it's personalized. So we can really internalize what you're talking about and make it personal to us. So I love the workbook too, and I got a lot out of it. And I
Oh,
think
great. Thank
other
you.
people will too. I think it's really, really helpful. And you were talking about how we connect with or communicate with people that we know. And I was listening to a podcast that you did a while ago. What was it on? It was, Simply Vegan. They're a UK based podcast. They have a magazine, big vegan magazine in the UK. And the topic that you were talking about was how we do communicate with our family members, that we're not trying to force them to become vegan. We just want them to understand where we're coming from and have some respect. So much of what you talk about is relationships. Could you just share a little bit about that for a second?
Sure, sure. Yeah, we have a video. It's a 7-minute video called "What to Say to Vegans." Yeah, what to say to vegans, and it's on our website, carnism.org, for anybody who wishes they just could have the non-vegans in their lives sit down and understand what the world looks like through vegan eyes, and to create a greater sense of connection. My work, my more recent work really focuses on relationships, on building healthy relationships between vegans and non-vegans, and also just more generally. And for many people, I've just heard this from thousands of people over the years, of vegans, and also some vegetarians, who will say, for instance, becoming vegan, the choice to become vegan was one of the most important and empowering choices that they've ever made in their lives. And yet this sense of empowerment and inspiration quickly turns to shock and horror when they discover that their relationships and communication start breaking down.
Mm-hmm.
And, people come home, they return to, from an event or, wherever it is, that after having made this choice, and they find that conversations get really difficult.
Yeah.
There's this, as we said, this automatic defensiveness, and it's very, very, it can be very challenging. Relationships don't have to end. They don't have to break down even. But most of us, I've said this many times before, I'm always shocked that most people in the world have to learn complicated geometry that we'll probably never need to use. And we don't get a single formal lesson in how to relate in a way that's healthy, and how to communicate effectively. And, when these are so fundamental to our well-being. And so being sustainable, practicing sustainable veganism, or sustainable vegan advocacy is really, really important. A big part of this, sustainability, as I said, is staying, it's not burning out. Basically, your advocacy, your life, is sustainable when what you're taking into yourself energetically, in these different levels, socially, relationally, psychologically,
Mm-hmm.
physically, is equal to or more than what you're putting out and giving out. And so often, we become attracted to this cause, and just we realize the horrors. We realize what's going on. We want to do everything in our power to end the suffering, and we start to neglect ourselves.
Yeah.
And, and that causes us to burn out. And when our relationships are also compromised, that increases the chances that we'll burn out and have problems. People in, there have been lots and lots of studies on this that have shown that people in healthy, fulfilling, connected relationships fare better in pretty much every aspect of life. They're healthier, they live longer, they're at
Hmm.
reduced risk for, psychological problems, and they're more successful at whatever they set out to do. So learning to practice, your veganism, or to be sustainable in, your veganism and your vegan advocacy, means learning to build your relational skills so that you can maintain healthy relationships. I talk about that in the course, and learning to identify and attend to your own needs so that you don't give out more than you're taking in.
So important, and that's so helpful the way you just explained it too, because we're all experiencing it on some level or another. Because even our best intentioned friends and family members, some of them just don't realize that that joke that they made wasn't so funny,
Exactly.
or I can take it, but maybe somebody who's newer to veganism isn't ready to take it. And to have this understanding early on, there is a way to bridge these relationships. It's like you could take a little bit of there's tools. You're offering tools to people so that the relationships, which are so important to your life, don't break down, because you want to be around your loved ones. You don't want these relationships to
Yeah, that's
end.
right. And even, I mean, outside of vegan, non-vegan differences, most people, as I said, have not been given the training and the skills, the tools to navigate relationships in a way that's healthy. And when you know that, when you learn how to build what I call relational literacy, which is the understanding of an ability to practice healthy ways of relating, it's a game changer in your life. Whether you're dealing with vegan, non-vegan differences, or introversion, extroversion, or whatever difference you might come across, everything gets easier, and it's you're much more likely to be able to have those healthy, fulfilling, connected relationships that really are like a safety net, and they really are the foundation of, well-being in so many other ways.
Brilliant. That's so important. So I do highly recommend this course that you submitted to the Vegan Health Bundle. For anybody who's tuning in now, just letting everybody know that I am so honored to be speaking with Dr. Melanie Joy. We've been speaking about how vegans can just stay kind of sane, as advocates, whether or not we're on the front lines doing pounding the pavement or just being vegan in our everyday life. And Dr. Joy has a wonderful course in the Vegan Health Bundle that, and it's really personalized too, because there's a wonderful workbook that goes along with it. And just for anybody who's tuning in who doesn't know what the Vegan Health Bundle is, we both are contributors to the class that Melanie has contributed. I contributed some cooking classes with some great recipes. There's over 150 other exercise classes, recipes, cooking classes, you name it. It's really well done. I'm so impressed. I've been cooking some of the vegan recipes in it this week. They're so delicious. I've been having a great time taking Dr. Joy's class. It's really been great. And I encourage everybody to take a look. I'll leave a link later when we're done with the interview. But before we say goodbye, is there anything else that you would like people to hear about your work? I mean, I really recommend that everybody goes out and at least reads Why We Love Dogs, Eat Pigs, and Wear Cows as a starter, just to get to understand the basics. But Beyond Beliefs, such a good book. I'm loving reading it now. Is there anything else that you suggest or that you want to share before we say goodbye?
Great. Yeah, thank you so much. Well, Beyond Beliefs is the book that I wrote for vegans and non-vegans in relationships. So
Hmm.
anybody who's, really wanting to improve their relationships, particularly in that way, that's what that book is for. I have another book called Getting Relationships Right, and that's a one-stop guide to building relational literacy. It's not focused on vegan, non-vegan relationships. It's a book that, whatever anybody who's interested in improving their relationships can use. And we are a service organization. Beyond Carnism is in service of, this change that we're talking about, this cause we're talking about, and the people who are a part of that. And so I invite everybody to come to the website. We have lots of resources for you on there. And we have, as well, a new resource, infighting.org. And this is it's a website. It's the most comprehensive website on the causes and of infighting, and that includes like any kind of like dysfunction or problems between vegans,
Mhm.
within organizations or across organizations, and a lot of tools if you want to, for anybody who wants to be able to like immediately help end this problem. So please, avail yourself of our resources, and thank
Wonderful.
you for, everything you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a delight. And I'm so glad that you just mentioned the infighting, because even within veganism, there's still people. Why you even went vegan in the first place? Let's all be on the same team, everybody. We're all fighting for the same thing. So thank you so much for joining me today. This has really been a pleasure and an honor. And I hope that maybe we can reconnect another time.
Thank you, Diane. It's been a pleasure for me too.
Okay.